Thank you, Mike. Happy Thanksgiving. We know President Trump was loving the House Republicans' tax cut plan, but that won't matter if the Senate and House can't come together and agree. Can they get it done? Let's ask New York Republican Congressman and member of the House Ways and Means Committee, Tom Reed. Can they get it done? Because the Senate, your brethren in the Senate, fouled up Obamacare repeal and replace. So what about these tax cuts?
Well, I absolutely do believe we're going to get to the finish line here by the end of the year and have this on the president's desk so people can enjoy a big tax cut and tax relief starting in 2018 immediately.
Well, being from the state of New York, you gave a thumbs up, a yay to the Republican tax cut plan in the House, the tax reform plan, despite largely it's a repeal of the state and local tax deduction. That is also on the Senate side. We've heard some pushback from the likes of Susan Collins, the senator from Maine, on that very thing. Do you think that that largely stays in the plan that gets put together in conference?
I think at a minimum, the compromise position we advocated for in the House and got included in the House GOP plan with the property tax deduction up to $10,000 will carry forward. And I think it can only get improved with maybe potentially bringing in the income tax deduction as a component of it when we negotiate with the Senate for completion of the bill. Because you got members in California, Illinois, elsewhere that are concerned about that portion of the loss of the state and local tax deduction. But bottom line, the property tax deduction, I think, is a minimum position that will continue forward.
Is there anything else in the Senate bill that would make you a no?
Well, you know, there's obviously a lot to digest with the Senate bill, but I think the differences between the House and Senate bill are things that we can bridge. I'm hopeful, for example, that the medical expense deduction that the Senate is included may find its way into the House bill. Things like the new markets tax credit, the historic tax credit, are things I've advocated for in the House that we lost in the House GOP. I'm looking forward to the Senate maybe bringing that to the table and including that in the final package. But overall, if they completely repeal the state and local tax deduction, I can't support that legislation, and that's where that's a non-starter in the House, in my opinion.
But try to explain this. I know that you have tried to explain it to your constituents, but it largely benefits corporations. It is a big change on the corporate side, and even for pass-through entities who file their taxes on their own individual returns. But it is really kind of a giant, somewhat unappetizing casserole if you try to explain it to your average taxpayer in this country. How can you do a better job of that? Because it does more on the corporate side than it does on the individual side, quite frankly.
Well, I may disagree with you on that. On the individual side, for example, in my typical family, making about $40,000 is our average salary in the district, they're going to see $1,600 of their own money kept in their pocket as a result of tax reform on the individual side. That's a significant amount of money to hardworking folks back home that we represent. And it's true, on the corporate and business side, we do give significant reduction in relief to them. But you got to remember, they're the economic heart, especially small business America. That special 9% rate that we do for small business pass-throughs, for example, that's Main Street business. That's not international business. That's mom and pop shops back home that we give that relief to. They're the economic engine that are going to use that extra cash, in my humble opinion, as a prior small business owner, to expand their employees, to build their product lines, build new service lines, and expand their businesses.
But, Congressman, I've seen the headlines and I've heard the talking points coming out of the Democrats that the individual tax cuts expire. On the corporate side, they're permanent. I understand the reasoning behind that, but you've got the headlines that half of individuals' taxes are going to go up after 10 years. You've got to answer that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's why we in the House coupled the immediate expensing provision with the sunset, because we're dealing with the bean counters, as you know. The bean counters restrict us. The rules of the Senate restrict that.
Now you just made enemies out of the entire accounting lobby. One for the tax reform and calling them bean counters. But continue.
Yeah. But no, those are the bean counters in D.C. and the Senate parliamentarian's office that are causing this, not the accountants back home. But we sunset the individual expensing provision, or the corporate business expensing, and the individual rates do sunset. But I believe that cliff that we're looking at 5 years down the road is something not any sane elected official will allow us to have happen, and we'll fix that as we go forward and make those permanent.
Real quick, give me the odds that the Senate actually passes something before the end of the year.
You know, I've said it before. We're approaching 100%. I mean, they have to deliver. They know what tax reform represents to the average American back home, and that's big relief, and that's money that they earned that they should be able to keep. And that, to me, is enough to drive this home.
Yeah, you guys and gals over in the House are up for re-election in less than a year. Those senators, most of them, not so much. But happy Thanksgiving, Congressman. Thanks so much for being here.
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Take care.